Well, good morning. This is Plant Smart Living with Farmer Fred. Really glad you could join me today out here in the vegetable garden. I'm out here at my outdoor instruction / workstation this morning. It's a beautiful day here in Pennsylvania, Zone 6. I'm even drinking my hibiscus tea outside because it's really cold this morning. It's nice to have my flannel shirt on. You know, those who live in Pennsylvania and other areas, you know, we've just passed through winter and now springtime's here. It's kind of like coming out of hibernation. So it's an exciting time to be out in the garden with the birds singing and just the smell of this spring air. Well, anyhow, today I just wanted to share with you how you can create a weed-free garden and also my compost delivery. So thanks for joining me today out here in the vegetable garden. Our hope as gardeners is to be able to go out in our garden and really enjoy being out there, you know, and try to avoid those things that are annoying and frustrating in the garden. And some of those things are weeds and, you know, your garden pests. And so, you know, I've eliminated a lot of my garden pests by growing my plants under row covers. And another thing I do is to avoid the weed problem is I grow all my plants in my composted leaf mulch that's amended with topsoil, and I grow all my plants in raised beds. But you know, the definition of a weed is a wild plant growing where it's not wanted or valued, and it's in competition for your cultivated plants. And you know, we all know how vigorous and tenacious these weeds can be. You know, they want to take over and choke out your plants, and you know, the roots are, you know, spread far and wide in our garden, and you know, they're in competition with the nutrients of our cultivated plants. And that's why we want to try to eliminate the weeds in our garden, because we don't want those roots of the weeds to rob our cultivated plants of any type of nutrition. So it's a competition for nutrients in the soil. So we want to do whatever it takes to resolve this problem, this issue. Now, one way is you could add mulch in your vegetable garden, and that's similar to putting icing on a cake. You could add a couple inches layer of grass clippings on the top of your soil, or straw. That's going to help suppress and choke out those weeds. Or like I do here in my Plant Smart Living gardens, I grow everything in my composted leaf mulch that's amended with topsoil. And it is a certified weed-free compost, and I buy it locally from Barnside Farms, and they have these huge piles. They're like 8 feet high and or more, and you know, 50 feet, 100 feet long. And so a state requirement is for them to bring those pile temperatures up to at least 131 degrees for a consecutive 15 days. And then they have to, during that time, they have to turn over the piles, and they have to allow them cure for at least 30 days. And during that time, you know, the piles raise in temperature anywhere from 140 to 160 degrees. And that's where these weed seeds are killed. And so, you know, what a great way to start your garden season is by putting some certified weed-free compost in your garden if you have it locally in your area. I also grow my green bell peppers, my tomatoes, my basil, my eggplant. I grow them in a 6 mil or 4 mil polyethylene black plastic, and that's another way you can also use as a plastic mulch. And I use that same piece of plastic year after year, and so that's really beneficial. They You know, these warm weather crops, they like warm feet, and so that helps warm up the soil early in the season. This hibiscus tea really hits the spot out here on this cool spring morning. You know, we're approaching near the end of April here, and our frost date here in Pennsylvania, Zone 6, is typically May 15th, and that's where when I'll be planting a lot of my warm weather crops. But anyhow, yesterday I had a delivery from Barnside Farms. I ordered 5 yards of compost amended with topsoil. And so, you know, I have them amended with topsoil because the topsoil adds extra minerals and nutrients to the composted leaves. And so that 5 yards cost me $205. That includes delivery. And, you know, 1 yard is 27 cubic feet. That's 3 by 3 by 3. You know, and so 27 cubic feet per yard. Now, I'm sure many of you have maybe gone out and purchased compost in bags. You know, when I was looking online, most compost in bags usually comes with like 1 cubic yard of compost. And I was looking online, you know, those bags of compost can cost anywhere from $3 to $5 or $6 per bag. And I think oftentimes that compost is just cow manure or horse manure, you know. And so, you know, if you do your math, you can quickly see how expensive filling your raised beds up with bags of compost, it can be really, really expensive. And so if it might pay you to look locally in your area, do some research and see if you can have a delivery of some bulk compost. Now every year I do go through my gardens and I add anywhere from like 1 to 2 inches of this leaf mulch on top of all my beds. It freshens them up. You know, I'll sometimes even use that as a mulch around some of my plants. And what's nice is when it rains down in the compost, the fresh compost, it kind of creates like a compost tea, and it just feeds those nutrients to the plants. And so, you know, it's just a win-win situation using this compost. You can also amend it to some of your existing soils if you need to. Add a little bit of peat moss, you know, and if your beds aren't totally filled with compost, certainly it is a good way to amend your soils. So anyhow, if you look over there, up there on the driveway, there's someone that wants us to follow them over to where the compost pile is. So anyhow, Barnside Compost up on my driveway delivered this compost for me, my 5 yards. It's like a pile of black gold sitting there. So why don't we go up and take a look at it. And so this here is my 5 yards of compost. I try to keep it uphill from my garden and in a dry spot. It's easy for me to access. Because I wheelbarrow most of my mulch into my garden. I have a nice hefty 8 cubic yard wheelbarrow. It's great exercise. I love doing this type of work here and labor. But anyhow, it makes it easy to access my garden. Let's just take a close look at what a handful of this compost looks like. You can just see how it's nice and rich, nice and loose. You know, and if you have nice loose soil, then that means that your root systems can stretch far and wide, you know, your plants. And that way they can take up more nutrients, resulting in a healthier plant. It's a stronger plant. It'll produce more fruit. Now, if you look out in the woods here, or the woods around you, you know, there's obviously a lot of big trees. And if you think about this whole idea, you know, you don't see anybody out there fertilizing these trees out in the forest, you know. And so how do they grow really big, you know? Well, it's through the leaves, you know. The leaves are full of trace minerals, of nutrients, you know, and You know, you think of it, the root system of a tree, you know, they typically reach out further than the canopy of the tree itself. They reach deep into the earth. And so what they do is they take up, they draw out all these, they absorb the trace minerals in the soil. And then the leaves are the recipients of all this nutrition. And so when you add composted leaf mulch to your garden, you know, you're adding and feeding the earthworms, you're feeding the beneficial microbes in the soil. You know, leaf mulches or leaf compost is also great for loosening your existing soil if there's a lot of clay. It's also great for retaining soil moisture. You know, if you have sandy soil especially, it's going to really help hold that moisture in there. And so there's just a lot of benefits to adding compost to your existing garden bed. I also did a short video clip of Barnside Farms delivering this compost that we can take a look at. Okay, good. Okay. Nice to see some sunny days, huh?
Yeah, I hope they stay.
Yeah, for sure.
Nice.
And so anyhow, it's going to be a beautiful day here today. The sun's really warming things up out here. I'm going to have to take off my flannel shirt because the sun is warming things up really quickly here. And so anyhow, I hope this video is able to give you some tips and ideas on how you can create a weed-free garden at your house. You know, if you have any questions or comments, you can feel free to leave them in the comment section below. And also, you know, my hope on my YouTube channel is to help everyone find their inner farmer, you know, and to share the message that gardening can be simple and easy. Even if you're just growing plants in containers on your back patio or your deck, it's something that you can do. You know, as a people, we've become disconnected from growing our own food. You know, we have the convenience of grocery stores on every corner. You know, but, you know, oftentimes that food has to travel 1,500 miles, you know, before it reaches the shelves. And so there's a lot of nutrient loss and pesticides on the food. And, you know, think of the benefits of having your own grocery store in your backyard. That's how I always put it, you know. And, you know, being my wife and I are plant-based, you know, this type of gardening just enhances our lifestyle because my wife and I, our fuel source is our plants, not animals anymore. We used to follow the standard American diet, but we've adopted this type of lifestyle and have just experienced amazing health benefits in our lives. So anyhow, I just want to thank you for joining me out here in the garden today. You can also visit us at PlantSmartLiving.com, and there you can learn more about gardening and also how you can regain and restore your health by adopting a whole food, plant-based, vegan lifestyle. Well, anyhow, I hope you have a wonderful day and a bountiful garden season. So until next time, this is Plant Smart Living with Farmer Fred.